foreign predatory parasitic corporations are replacing our natural environment with an industrial landscape of wind turbines. One Nation will stand against sending children down a path of drug dependency and body mutilation to appease the gender cult. Leave our kids alone. The Trusted Digital Identity Bill is a global surveillance and control mechanism that profit-hungry corporations and power-mad politicians drafted and crafted. One Nation opposes this inhuman, dystopian future that the United Nations promotes as the Great Reset, and we condemn this Parliament for signing on to it. I called for Australia to reject the World Economic Forum's Great Reset and instead mount a great resist. Just like the koalas being euthanised to make way for wind turbines, or damaged solar panels leaking toxic heavy metals into waterways, the United Nations net zero plan again involves killing the environment to save it. I've been speaking about the fear, the oppression and the inhuman cruelty of our COVID response since July 2020. I promised to hound down those responsible, and I will continue relentlessly to keep that promise. You're about to be live with me, Senator Malcolm Roberts. Well, good afternoon. It's Friday again, and this is the weekly wrap from Brisbane for Queensland and Australia. We've been in Canberra for the last 2 weeks, suffered through that. You know, people ask me, what's it like being in Parliament? It's like swimming in treacle. It's so damn frustrating. But before we get on to what's happened this week, or some of the things that happened this week, I want to point out that tomorrow is a landmark for One Nation. We're having the first branch meeting, and that's at Lily. Well, it's not the first branch meeting. It's actually the first of the modern generation of branch meetings. One Nation has had branch meetings for many, many years at different levels, but this will be the first branch meeting, and I'll talk more about that tomorrow in a few minutes. Sunday, so that's Saturday. Sunday, I'm at the Gold Coast speaking. I'll have more details about that. Well, let's go to it now. It's on social media. Speaking at the Australians for Better Government conference at the Gold Coast, Sunday afternoon. I think it starts 12:30 to 4:30. Yes, that's correct. That's the official proceedings. Come early for lunch if you want. Be on your own cost, of course, and stay afterwards. We'll be answering questions. How to return our country back to putting the people in charge, which is where it's supposed to be. It's almost sold out there. I think there are 20 tickets left. So, and that's not a ruse to get people to buy more tickets. That's the fact. Speakers, well-known speakers. So I'll be talking about, go to our social media, X, Instagram, Facebook, and you'll get the details. Okay, now, coming back to the branches. One Nation had branches in 1998, and they were infiltrated by the Liberal Party and the Labor Party and destroyed from within. So Pauline said, no more branches. And I can't blame her. Fledgling party, the only real opposition ever to Liberal and Labor. And so they were out to get us. Now, though, we're pretty well established. We've got 4 senators in federal parliament. We've got members of parliament in other states. And we want to democratise our party, make it more democratic, and get input. We've already sought input from our regional branches and all of our members right across Australia for what issues people want us to raise in Parliament. And that was introduced to us back in last week, in the first day of Parliament. So we're taking those issues to the Parliament. But branches are starting out now all over Australia, and we're very, very, very proud of it. I'll be in other states soon, South Australia coming up, I think in August. But the inaugural branch meeting is tomorrow in the branch of Lily here in Brisbane. It's a new invigorated system, and it's based upon federal electorates. So we've got branches in other states, of course. We've got the state party branches. We've got regional committees. Some have been very, very successful and continue to be successful. Now we're going to have proper branches with input into pre-selection of candidates and running the party. So One Nation is now stronger, so we're returning back to branches, and these are real branches and real democracy. Oh, and head office has asked me to mention something to you. They're going to text through some material sometime in the next 30 minutes, but I don't usually check messages while I'm on live stream. So just in case I miss it, it's basically, I've been told, Pauline wants a survey of our members about banking, or not just our members, from all people across Australia, some of the horror stories of banking. So in Australia, watch for the social media announcements coming out about the survey in the next few days. Hopefully, might even be this afternoon. Watch social media. Look, it's really important because we want to put pressure on the banks. We want to put pressure on the government, and I'll talk more about the government in a minute. Back in 2016, I was fresh to Senate and I didn't know which way was up. And we had Prime Minister Turnbull at the time. He said 16 times, he said, as Prime Minister, he said, there will be no banking royal commission, full stop, end of story. 16 times. Scott Morrison, as Treasurer, said 26 times, there will be no banking royal commission. Well, they forgot about One Nation. And Pauline and her determination, she did a deal with Turnbull about something else. I can't remember what it was. That's almost 10 years ago. And in return, Turnbull and Morrison gave us the chairmanship, gave us a Senate select inquiry into lending to primary production customers. In other words, rural lending to fishermen or fishers, to timber getters and to forestry and to farmers. And we went out, as we do, we went out into the bush and we stimulated people, encouraged them to make submissions. Then we got some fantastic submissions, and we helped them with, in some cases, with the submissions. And then we went out into the bush, and we made sure our first hearings. And I was made chair. Pauline said to me she wants me as chair, so I chaired it, and I worked jointly with the other members of the Senate committee. I remember Wacker Williams, he was a good man from the National Party in northern New South Wales. And he and I worked together. We made a video together. Everything was done in a bipartisan way. And I want to thank Wacker again, John Williams, for helping, because he had so much experience in the Senate. But he knew banking was a problem in this country, is a problem in this country. So he and I got together. When we got the submissions, we then selected who to have as witnesses. We had our first, at my insistence, we had our first hearings in the bush, Charters Towers and then Roma. Then we went to Perth because a lot of the farmers in Western Australia are not far from Perth or find it a central location. Perth's so diverse and so large, so huge. Anyway, we had those inquiries and most of the farmers, and we got the dirt from the farmers. And I was shocked. Suicides, browbeating, bullying, the stealth, the stealing, and then we got the banks. We had a hearing in Sydney. Then we had a hearing in Canberra. Then we had a second hearing. We brought in the insolvency practitioners, the recovery merchants, and there's some horror stories there. But we had one very good one who blew the lid on it. And as a result of that, our recommendation was going to be to hold a Royal Commission. One of our recommendations, our first recommendation, we lost them. Fortunately, we had people like George Christensen and others in the National Party, some of the people in the National Party, who saw that our recommendation was going to be to hold a Royal Commission. They went to the government of the day, who was Turnbull and Morrison as Treasurer, Turnbull as Prime Minister, and said, One Nation is going to recommend this. Sorry, the independent committee is going to recommend this. And it's pretty solid. And then Turnbull jumped the gun, which was exactly what we'd hoped he would do. It's the Royal Commission that into financial services in Australia. And that was horrific. I'm still very disappointed that not one senior executive, despite all of the theft, the fraud that went on, not one senior executive has been jailed. Not one. driven program. What a mouthful. It's an instrument, I forgot to say, 2024, made under the Industry Research and Development Act 1986. This is where the fun bit starts. This regulation One Nation seeks to revoke is a $60 million slush fund that Climate Change and Energy Minister Chris Bowen, there he is again, will have to splash around on pet projects. Specifically, this is $60 million for the installation and repair of electric vehicle chargers. These are electric vehicle chargers from which only some of the most well-off of Australians who can afford an EV will benefit. While rents are skyrocketing, houses are more unaffordable than ever, groceries keep getting more expensive, and beer is heading towards $15 a pint, taxpayers should not be slugged with more taxes to pay for this government's slush fund. Why is the government obsessed with putting everyone into electric vehicles? Some of them have decent speed, admittedly, when you put your foot down. Yet the range on purely electric vehicles, battery electric vehicles, is mostly terrible. It gets even worse when trying to tow something. Forums for the F-150 Lightning Ford, a battery-powered ute, are full of horror stories that unfold as soon as the trailer is attached. This is worldwide. Australians already know all of this and are voting with their wallet. The rejection of battery EVs shows up in new car sales figures. Battery electric vehicles were just 6.5% of new car sales. And how long have they been offered? Years. Even here in capital Wokistan, Canberra, home of the country's loudest virtue signallers, battery electric vehicles are just 3.6% of all vehicles on the road. This is despite every effort of government and multinational corporations trying to pull Australians away from the trusty petrol and diesel engine. There's been a near decade of propaganda and lies trying to convince Australians to make the switch, not buying it. Never mind the hugely expensive tax breaks that give an EV buyer tens of thousands of dollars. These tax breaks include exemptions from the lower luxury car tax threshold, exemptions from the penalties under the new vehicle efficiency standard, or the ute tax as it's become known. No fuel excise at 50.8 cents a litre. Exemptions from fringe benefits tax, representing a $12,000 saving on a $60,000 EV, but costing taxpayers $550 million a year. Taxpayers pay for this. This is Robin Hood in reverse, robbing the poor to pay for the wealthy, plus an array of rebates from state governments across the country. They've thrown just about every tax break in the book at EVs, and still Australians aren't fussed over the inferior electric vehicle products. More than 95% of vehicles on the road still contain internal combustion engines, the trusty petrol and diesel, the reliable petrol and diesel, the safe petrol and diesel. Naturally aspirated, turbocharged, supercharged, or in a hybrid setup. Australians have rightly shunned battery EVs for engines that make a noise when turned on. Tradies cried out in horror when the legendary V8 from the Toyota Land Cruiser 200 series and utes was removed from market in anticipation of the coming government regulations and crackdown. Now, are EVs cheaper to run? Well, a car expert road trip test throws real doubt on that. They drove two BMWs on a road trip from Melbourne to Sydney. The same exact car, same year of make, same start, same finish point. The only difference, one was battery electric version, the other hydrocarbon fueled. When they arrived in Sydney, the electric vehicle charging had cost more for the road trip than filling up with the most expensive 98 petrol. Of course, electricity isn't free, and neither are these charges. The Minister's slush fund we are seeking to disallow here is paying for the installation of chargers that are businesses in themselves, so we're paying for a business. Taxpayers will foot the bill for installing a charger, and the EV business will reap all the profits from the charge they sell through it forever, for eternity. We would never do this with service stations because it's bloody... So we're back. Are we back? Oh, that's beautiful, Unhinged. No wonder your name's called Unhinged. It should be good sense of humour. That's a fantastic thing to see when I come back. So apologies for the technical difficulties. We're over them. Just restarted the computer. Seems like everything Gates touches has a virus in it and has to get sorted out and restart. we didn't have to pay this time. Anyway, so we were very successful in getting a Royal Commission, and despite the Prime Minister and the Treasurer at the time saying no, all because we went to the grassroots, and we've done that repeatedly. We've gone to the people. That's how we smashed the misinformation and disinformation bill, and Labor withdrew it after Morrison Liberals designed it. Same with the cash ban bill. That was also defeated by the people. And that's very, very important to remember. It's a theme you'll be hearing a lot from me this year and this term, this 6-year term, because the people are supposed to be in charge of this country. So, coming back to the banks, so we'll be sending out a survey to people through social media. So please respond to that and give us your horror stories. And, I'll make a final point about the banks. People think we've got 4 main banks. They're all having a control. They all have being held in control by BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, First State, and other major wealth funds, global wealth funds, investment funds. And what's happening is that they control each of the 4 banks. So really, what we've got is one bank with 4 logos. One bank hiding behind 4 logos, and some of the smaller banks are owned by the big banks. So we've got a big banks that control. We had a wonderful Commonwealth Bank, the original Commonwealth Bank, not the private or the bank at the moment, but the People's Bank, originally set up in 1912, and was fantastic. Put Australia on its feet. And it provided real competition, which meant that the private banks were held accountable. And bit by bit, even though it was introduced by a Labor government, bit by bit, it was nobbled by Labor governments and Liberal governments and their predecessors, and it was smashed and eventually flogged off by Paul Keating, the Labor Prime Minister, in 1995. So we've got no public competition, and the Commonwealth Bank grew because of its service, and it forced the others to pull their heads in. So they've got nothing like that now. And let's face it, we've seen it in action. The Treasury Department in Canberra, Labor Party, Liberal Party are beholden to the banks. The banks run this country through the Liberal Party and Labor Party. And that's why the policies are the same. Speaking of policies that are the same, Malcolm Turnbull, as Prime Minister, created the e-safety office, and supposedly for child protection. But it's branching out into a control of the internet, a censorship group, and Julie Inman-Grant, the current e-safety commissar, she's in charge, and she is part of a global organisation that is, and we've seen that she's created that global entity, linked up with other countries, and what they're doing is putting a protocol out for around the world, and we'll be part of that. Now the Labor Party is defending her, and we had some very interesting developments in the Senate this week. Senator Babet, to his credit, put up a matter of urgency, which requires a vote, and people spoke in favour or against reining in the e-safety commissar. Then we put it to a vote, and the vote was positive. We won. And I want to compliment Greens Senator Shoebridge, who really spoke very, very well, joined us in highlighting some of the pitfalls of the e-safety commissar, e-safety office, and how it's heading towards censorship, an invasion of people's own spaces through biometric recognition of faces, control of the internet. And so I thought very quickly, my office and I thought very quickly, if we've got the Greens on board, we can maybe have an inquiry into the e-safety codes, search for e-safety codes, code for search engines. Yes, but unsound engineer, we'll be hearing more about the Greens in a minute. So what happened basically was the e-safety commissar didn't think that the search engine companies' voluntary code was tight enough. And so the Safety Commissar's office created its own safety code, which cannot be implemented properly and which will involve heavy restrictions on internet use and invasions of privacy. No doubt about it. And so what we want to do is to have an inquiry into the industry safety code and the Safety Commissar's safety code. So we thought the Greens would be all over it. They opposed it. What's happening in our parliament is that the Labor has a majority in the lower house. The Greens have one person only. But in the upper house, the Greens and Labor combined have 1 over half, which means they have 39 out of 76. 38 is halfway, so they have a clear majority on their own. We have got a communist shit show going on in Canberra. The Greens and the Labor Party work together to control this country now. So the Labor Party introduces bills that it knows the Greens will support, and the Greens and Labor jostle behind the scenes. The Greens stitched up every committee. The Greens have got so many things that the other parties haven't got. They've got a luxurious new party meeting room, for example, that was just bestowed on them. These two parties, Labor and Greens, are working together, and the Greens dictate what's happening in this country. So hold on. We were in for a rocky ride. So anyway, my office moved quickly after Ralph Babette's motion got up with the support of the Greens. We moved a motion for an inquiry into the e-safety code for search engines. And the Greens voted against it. They voted against it, went against what they said on the floor of the Parliament. So I want to read some text messages from a guy called Matt. I won't reveal his name, second name. On Thursday, he said, in the UK, you can now vote at 16 or 17. That's true. But in Australia, you won't be able to watch YouTube at 16 or 17. And Liberal and Labor have both supported the e-safety commissar. So what we need to do is protect our kids. Now, the e-safety commissar, I've got to say, does a good job of protecting kids, but they're crueling kids from interacting with their mates on social media. They're crueling kids from accessing search engines. There are kids, 14, 15, 16 years of age, who have made stellar businesses and are now quite wealthy and becoming even wealthier. And that's good luck to them. That's their initiative. So what we've got now, there's a Channel 6 kid who started his own YouTube channel while underage. There will be 16-year-olds with online shops and businesses. They'll be running educational channels. Thank you, Matt. That will now be turned off by the e-safety commissar. This is not protecting kids. This is restricting kids. You can get high-achieving academic kids who have learned from YouTube. Our son, we know that maths is very important. He wanted to be an engineer and a pilot. And so we bought a very, very good mathematics tutorial when he was 16, which is 16 years ago, maybe 17 years ago, and gave it to him and our daughter to use for maths. Well, he went off and used his initiative and found even better instruction on social media, on YouTube. And he learned from a teacher somewhere in the United States, Minnesota or somewhere, and fantastic. And he did really well at maths thanks to that. So, plus, Matt says every child wants to be an influencer. It's the number one job they want in the future. And apparently that's fair income. That's done in surveys. So this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for some kids. The Liberal and Labor and Greens are on the opposite side. They're wanting to restrict the opportunities for kids and for children. There he goes. He's given me a photo of a survey result. 30% of kids aged 8 to 12 listed YouTuber as their top career choice. Wow. It's a huge opportunity for kids to really get ahead. Now, what we've got now is the Greens saying one thing and doing the opposite. They want to pretend that they're after they're opposing censorship, but they're now in favour of censorship and no inquiry into it. And then we see their next act, low act. Alex Antic and Matt Canavan introduced a bill that to amend the Sex Discrimination Act, to remove gender identity and reinsert the definitions of man and woman in the Sex Discrimination Act. They and we, because we support it very strongly, and we work well with Alex, he's a great guy. They're opposing, and we're opposing, blokes getting into toilets, women's toilets and sports, and saying they can identify as a woman and therefore no one can throw them out. So what normally happens, it's a convention. You allow a bill to be introduced into Parliament. Almost never is a bill voted against when it's introduced. One of Pauline's was last year on this very topic. Pauline was the first to raise it last year, and the Greens and Labor combined to smash it out. Did not even allow a bill to be introduced, and yet it's a convention to allow the bill to be introduced. Let's face it, if you want to debate, then you introduce the bill and then debate it. But that's not what Labor and the Greens do. So this time they let the bill in, but then they blocked the first reading amendment. So there'll be no debate of this bill at all. That's the end of it. It was voted out and gone. They allowed it into the Senate and then tossed it straight out. It's very, very rarely done to vote no to the first reading of the bill. So I got up and got permission to speak, and I spoke for 30 seconds. And all I said was, always beneath control. Let's face it, that's what the Greens and Labor Party are doing. They're controlling the agenda by stopping debate on this bill. So always beneath control, there is fear. They're afraid of an inquiry because it may expose the facts. We've got a brave woman in Queensland, a doctor, Gillian Spencer. We've got people popping up all over the country now talking about how the gender dysphoria treatment that's called gender affirmation is not backed by science. One of them even said that she assumed it was backed on science. I think this is Gillian. I was listening to her last night coming home from the airport. And she said that she was staggered to learn that there's no scientific basis for the gender transition operations and the gender transition chemicals they're giving. What they do is create a lifelong dependency on kids. What you'll find is the Greens and some people in the Labor Party accuse us of causing suicides. The suicides in adolescent boys and girls are when they transition or try to transition. You can't change sex. When they try to transition and they're told that, oh yeah, if you don't like it, you can change back again. It's reversible. Well, that's complete crap. It's not reversible. And then when they're told it's not reversible, they suicide. So if you're listening to this and you're an adolescent considering changing, or you can't change sex, transitioning, then don't. Really wait a few years, get a feel for your own body and learn to live in it and love it. But anyway, so now people are waking up. Judges are slamming the hospitals, Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne, for the gender transitioning experiments because they're not reversible and they really destroy people's bodies and destroy people's minds at a critical time of mental development. So the Greens are afraid of an inquiry. The Labor Party is afraid of an inquiry into this bill, afraid of the debate because it will expose the facts. They've already got the majority in the Senate together. They can easily stop this bill. Now they're stopping debate. And by the way, we understand there are some senators whose kids have changed. They're transitioned, they call it. It's not changing gender, transitioned. So I can imagine their fear because they probably supported their children doing that, which I think is negligent. But now that the inquiries are coming out saying this is very, very bad. So maybe they're feeling guilty. We have, as I said, a communist coalition in control, Labor Party and Greens. They do deals to suit each other. And every deal they do, and I'll talk more about some of these deals later, is stealing from the country. We, the people of Australia, pay for this rubbish. It's stealing to pay. What they do is they steal from the majority of taxpayers and give it to their mates to keep getting their votes. Speaking of cuts, staff cuts. I told you last week about the Prime Minister unilaterally and unfairly and dishonestly and in contravention of laws and rules and regulations and convention took both of my staff. Not only that, he didn't talk to me. He wrote them letters and terminated their employment as of August 17th. Jackie Lambie is a senator representing the people of Tasmania. 575,000 people in Tassie. Lovely people, 575,000 of them. Queensland, 5.6 million, 10 times as many for the same number of senators. And look at the area we've got to cover and the different topographies and climates and regions that we've got to cover. So she's got 3. Tammy Tyrrell, same. She's a senator, an independent senator for Tasmania. She's got 2. David Pocock's got 2. David Pocock, staff got letters saying they're sacked, but they'll be rehired the next day. Pauline Hanson, staff did not get a letter, but mine did. I wonder why. And that's not because of Pauline, not because we didn't get a letter because of Pauline. I think that they're afraid to touch Pauline, but they also know I've been very damaging to the Liberal and Labor Party and Senate estimates. So I wonder if they'll stop me flying to Canberra for Senate hearings and Senate meetings and Senate in session. Wonder if they'll stop my travel. Wonder if they'll kick all my staff out. But fancy writing a letter to the staff without consulting the employer. So this is a real rabble. They've broken laws, they've broken regulations, they've broken the charter, they've broken decency. The PWSS, the Parliamentary Workplace Support Services, is in on it. It's a real shit show. We've also got other senators. Ralph Babet had his cut from 2 to 1, unlike me, from 2 to 0. Ralph was cut from 2 to 1. And who else is in there? Fatima Payment has none. She's never had any. So this is complete mess. So it's very unfair. The process is a rabble. And my staff are going to do something about it. Both of them are going to be taking this further legally. And also consider the mental health impacts on people. They just set up in Canberra, renting places, and now that they might have to let go of those things, cancel the rent, then might not find another place if they get put back on. But the point is, I'm their bloody employer, and I wasn't even consulted. So anyway, Pauline has been asking for weeks for a letter, for a meeting with the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister finally said yes. Pauline. It was the next day. Well, Pauline couldn't change her firm commitment, so she asked for another meeting, and that was in Canberra last Tuesday. And the Prime Minister said, Pauline alone. And Pauline turned up with me, accompanying her, and the Prime Minister said, you can't both come in. It's either Pauline or Malcolm. Why can't he deal with both of us? I'm only a little guy, so. Anyway, Pauline said, well, it's your staff, in you get. So I went in there, pointed out what I've just pointed out to you all in terms of the 3 basic points: the unfairness, the contraventions of convention, the contraventions of regulations and laws, administrative law in particular, the mental health consequences on our staff. So much for the Workers' Party, the Labor Party. But anyway, he had his chief of staff in there, so 2 of them. Only one of me, and he would not let a second one in. Later that day, it had already been previously arranged. I met with the Special Minister of State, Don Farrell. He had his Chief of Staff with him. He had the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff with him, and I had a lawyer from our office with me. Same shit show we went through it. And then they said, then we told them, well, you've sent a letter to my 2 staff, but you haven't sent a letter to Pauline's, both of her staff. What? Yes, we have. They said, and I said, no, you haven't. So they're going to check it out. These guys are trying to run the bloody country. They can't even run my office, but they try, and that's the point. These bastards try to do things that they should not be involved in, and they can't do it, and they can't even run the things they're supposed to be involved in. So we're pursuing it in many ways, Pauline and I, and the other senators, Tyrone Whitten from Western Australia, and Warwick Stacey from New South Wales, and they're determined bastards. So stay tuned, and our staff are also tackling it. Moving on, one of the things I like and admire. Let me check the time. One of the things I like and admire about One Nation is that we have the guts to do what's right in the national interest, even if it risks losing voters. Now, Labor brought in a bill to cut the HECS debt 20%. Just wipe it out. Just wipe it out. People have made a commitment to pay a HECS debt for their education. They don't have to pay 20% of it back. So we're faced then, and the Greens promised that. The Labor Party promised it before the election, so they're making a song and dance about doing it. The gutless Liberals went along with it. We have a choice between supporting taxpayers, who will be on the hook for that 20%, or students. Students have made a commitment to pay it back. The taxpayers have been witness to that commitment for students to pay it back. Why should the taxpayers pay for it? Why should tradies and others who've worked hard and now they're forced to pay for students 20% of students' bill? That's not right. So even though it meant we might lose the student vote, we voted in favour of the taxpayers. And by the way, we also considered the students, as I'll tell you in a minute, show you in a minute, but we know voting in support of the taxpayers and protecting the taxpayers, the innocent taxpayers of this country, is beneficial for HECS debt holders longer term, because they'll be one day taxpayers. Besides, the other thing is, what's fair? What's in the national interest? Now, we have been recognising the real problems with the HECS debt, and that indexation, cheap courses, bloated university vice-chancellors and administration departments, and the deteriorating education standards. So I'm going to go through a post that I put out a couple of days ago about yesterday, about the position we took on the HECS vote. So I'll just read it out. Today, One Nation voted against the government's HECS bill because it is a con job that is going to leave students, graduates and taxpayers worse off in the long run. The government has outright lied. The effective debt cut is just 2%, taking into account previous indexation. Indexation that was made worse because the government caused the inflation crisis, both governments, Liberals and Labor. And Labor continued the inflation because it didn't cut spending in several places, as the Reserve Bank expected. So let me tell you what happens. In a normal mortgage, a house or a loan, if you've got a car loan or whatever from a bank, you have a principal that has to be paid. That's the outstanding loan amount. When you pay money in to pay that off, the principal comes down, and you have less to pay off, and you accumulate less interest costs. And that's fair. That's what it's supposed to be. With the HECS debt, people have deductions to the taxation department. It's pay as you go. So they're contributing to paying off their principal. But in June of each year, the HECS debt is inflated up. Then in July, it's the yearly tax deductions to the ATO are taken off the principal. So they inflate it up before they take the repayments off. That's completely wrong. Completely wrong. So when you consider the inflationary aspects of that and the indexation, basically it's been indexed 18%, and the tax and the debt cut is 20%. That's about 2%, taking into account previous indexation. Indexation that was made worse because the government, as I said, caused the inflation crisis. Second point I made in my post was this bill does nothing to fix the broken university sector. Here's what One Nation would do for students. Fix the HECS indexation timing. The government should apply withheld HECS payments before the indexation to prevent students from being unfairly charged interest on money already paid. This is a real scam from the government's part. It's pretending to do something. The Greens are pretending to do something, but it's not. Then we need to, part of One Nation proposal is to cut fees for courses. One Nation proposes reducing fees for subjects that rely heavily on outdated pre-recorded lectures and frequent group assignments. Group assignments have been brought in to make it easier for people who don't understand English. We've had horror stories of what's regarding there. The people who understand English end up doing the work, and then the people the immigrants, the foreign students who don't understand English, just ride on their back. And then we're putting out students who don't understand English, who don't understand the work. So that's one thing. On pre-recorded lectures, sometimes the lectures are pre-recorded and just replayed every year for 5, 6, 7, 10 years. And that's bugger all costs to do with that. So the university have reduced costs, but they pay their vice-chancellors. The major universities pay their vice-chancellors, every one of them pay their vice-chancellors over $1 million a year. To just sit over a cash cow that's feeding off foreign students, bloated numbers that's destroying the education standards for our own Australian students. We will publish the graduate salary data. Universities should disclose the average graduate salaries at 1, 5 and 10 years after graduation to help students make informed decisions about their degrees. Why should people invest in getting a HECS debt that they have to pay off for a degree that you can't get a decent job in? That's why we want to publish the data to show how effective or not effective the degrees are. We want to enforce English standards. Universities should strictly enforce English proficiency for international students to ensure fair group work and protect domestic students' academic outcomes. We want to increase university accountability. Universities must be held responsible for the quality and outcomes of the degrees they offer, especially when public funds are involved. Public money they're getting on, ripping off foreign students, many of whom are here as on a Ponzi scheme just to get a job and send money home. $11 billion was sent home by people in this country on visas last year. $11 billion. Not all of the students by any means, but that's the point. And they're allowed to bring their families over, the whole family, which puts pressure on housing. All of these things must be fixed, or the HECS debt will be racked up again and graduates will be back to where they started. And, One Nation can see the problem. Before the election, we came up with the housing policies, which included rolling HECS debt into a house loan so that students can get a house and then pay it off on a 5% fixed interest, a variable time loan of up to 30 years. So I'll come back to housing later. Oh, and I haven't got the video prepared. We've got 3 of our staff sick with flu. They got it in Canberra and then they weren't healthy. Pauline got it too. She had to go home a day early. But anyway, over the HECS debt, I had a little bit of fun with Minister Jess Walsh, who's a senator representing the Minister for Education in the Senate. I asked her, because she kept talking about how government money is being spent on this, government money is being spent on that. I said, who pays for government money? She would not say taxpayer. I asked her at least half a dozen times, what is government money? And she would not say it's taxpayer money. What is it, Minister? She would not say. She failed to answer. She deviated always by saying, oh, it's revenues. Oh, it's fully costed. No, it's taxpayer money. There is no such thing as government money. It is all from the taxpayer. Oh, and then the other gutless people in the room. You're absolutely right, Wendy Pilbeam. The whole system is buggered. It really needs held accountable. And that's the guts of my talk in the Gold Coast on Sunday. And we need to put the people back in charge. Many Liberals agreed with our stance. We cannot afford to cut 20% off the HECS debt for people who've made that commitment. Taxpayers are paying for it. But the Liberals either left the chamber or voted yes. Cowards versus people who stand up for what they believe in. One Nation, that's what I love about Pauline. She will do things, she will agree with me on doing things that mean we might not be popular, but they're in the national interest. Then housing. The Greens cause unlimited mass immigration. That's what they want. They want to stop the logging of replaceable renewable forest timber in this country, so we have to import our timber for housing, which raises the price. The Greens then, after they've caused the housing problem, then they put up a simple, attractive, something that looks attractive solution: rent caps. Everywhere rent caps have been introduced throughout history, all around the world, it's led to increased rents. But it sounds attractive because it's simple. So it seems simple, it seems attractive, yet it actually makes things worse. And that's what the Greens are good at doing, putting in solutions that are fairy dust that make things worse. And who ends up paying? We, the people, end up paying. Housing, immigration, energy, culture. Labor makes promises to buy votes that cost all taxpayers in higher taxes or in reduced services, while ignoring the core problem or making it worse. So, as I said, it's cowards versus people who stand up for what they believe in. Look at the other topics: energy, climate, social aspects, net zero. Pauline moved a motion of matter of urgency motion in the Senate on Monday I think it was. Tuesday. And and Labor and the Greens opposed it, of course, but the Liberals knew that. So they weren't in the chamber to vote against our matter of urgency. But they wouldn't come into our side because they didn't want to be seen to going against their own policy, even though most of them believe that net zero is a crock and it's hurting the country. So everyone, the Greens, the Labor Party, the Independents, the minor parties, One Nation, just had a huge laugh, because as soon as the division happened and the division ended, the Liberals walked in together from hiding outside. Welcome to country is another thing. The Liberals, with a few exceptions, just meekly kowtowed to it. Nampa Jimpa Price, I've got to single her out. She did a good job in standing up beside Pauline and speaking about our opposition to Welcome to Country, which we still oppose. identity card for users of Medicare, which is to protect taxpayers because we've got people rorting the Medicare system. We need an identity card with photo ID, not electronic digital ID, just photo ID, so that you go in and you show your face, and then you get to claim on Medicare instead of getting your foreign brother, foreign sister, foreign kids, their kids all ripping off the Medicare system. Same with PBS, Pharmaceutical Benefit Scheme. Then we've got tax bracket creep. Twice I've introduced a bill, an amendment to Labor's Treasury bills, money bills, to end tax bracket creep and to put in place tax bracket indexation so that people stay on the same tax bracket regardless of inflation. Labor Party and Liberal Party always put up speakers saying, we love this idea, it's a fantastic idea, but then they don't vote for it. So they put on appearances. Immigration, same thing. No one else will tackle immigration, just one nation. Just one nation. I'm an immigrant, so I had to remind the Labor Party of that. I don't hate immigrants. I like immigrants. They built Australia. But the fact is we've got too many of them right now, and they're causing a massive catastrophe in housing. We've got homeless people all the way up the east coast of Queensland, every major provincial city. We've got coal that's the best coal in the world. We can't use it in Australia, but we can export it. The Liberal Party is guilty of this. The Labor Party is guilty of this. The Greens are guilty of this. The Teals are guilty of this. Look, there's so many other things. The net zero, Paris Agreement. Oh, and then the other bastards endorsed the World Health Organization, which is part of the UN. Look, the Liberals and Nationals are in a mess because they've had years of following the Greens and Labor Party. One Nation, though, is not confused. We are very clear that Australian success should be put first, and that means dumping net zero. We've had 25 years since the Renewable Electricity Act was introduced, and life hasn't got better. It's got far worse. Cost of living, groceries, power bills, housing, insurance, new cars. Jobs going overseas, manufacturing shutting down here and going overseas, all because the cost of electricity in this country is much higher. In China, they produce 9 times our coal, so they produce 4.5 billion tons of coal. We produce 560. We export much of our coal, most of our coal. Chinese use it domestically because they know coal forms the cheapest form of power, and when you send out coal from overland, from the mine overland, overland, handle it in 2 ports, the shipping port, the receiving port, then you put it over the land transport in China, and they sell their coal-fired power for the equivalent, when you bring in currency exchange rates, 12 cents a kilowatt hour. Australia, we have the power station at the bloody mine mouth, no transport costs, and we sell it for up to 33 cents a kilowatt hour. Nearly 3 times as much, 2.5 times as much. Crazy. Our coal gives them cheap electricity. Our coal gives us expensive electricity because of solar and wind subsidies in this country. I'm going to come to a piece of good news in a minute. We should be able to use Australia's resources for Australians. At the moment, we're selling them overseas, yet can't use them here for our own benefit. Australians see that on many topics, Liberal and Labor are close. Their policies are almost identical. They're pushing the same thing. They won't stand up. It's a uni party. Now, I want to get to wonderful speeches we've had from first speeches. Leah Bly in the Liberal Party gave a wonderful speech about how her belief is in a free society and also freedom of enterprise. And I agree with her. She gave a really good speech. Jess Collins, 2 days ago, spoke really well in the Senate as well. She spoke, it was so refreshing to see a working woman who took time off to have children. She could afford it. But she has pride in being a mum. And that's what we need to see in Australia. People being proud of being fathers. People being proud of being mums. There's nothing more important than a mother in our society. I honestly believe that. Oh, sorry. Maybe children are more important, but for having children, we've got to have more mums. And Jess Collins spoke very well, glowing. You could see the glow coming out of her when she spoke of her pride as a mum. So refreshing to see that. When we've got the Greens standing up and saying how proud they are that the majority of Australian women now work. Well, okay, work, but who's looking after the children? Then we have to pay for childcare. Then childcare assaults. If you go onto our social media, you'll find me talking about the capacity investment scheme. Billions of dollars of your money are being blown in secret in secret. The Australian energy market operator is shoveling this money out from Minister Bowen, Chris Bowen, to guarantee to put a floor under the solar and wind, only the solar and wind price of revenue. So basically, it's done in secret. There is no accountability. Your money is basically giving them a blank check. And when you haven't got accountability and endless amounts of money, billions, then you've got a ripe source of corruption. I want to mention a very, very strong lady who's stood up, Joanna Howe, Dr. Joanna Howe. She's not a medical doctor. But look, the Liberals and Nationals are weak on protecting life. Christofouli has banned a debate on abortion for 4 years. Right now, in this state, and in every other state, women can have an abortion up to term, just before the child is born. And if the abortion fails and the child is aborted, but the baby doesn't die, then it's left to die. It cannot be treated. That's murder. So I'll just go on to X, which used to be called Twitter. There's a post here by Kurt Malberg. I had it lined up. I've lost it. Here we go. There's a great post on climate change on my X channel as well. Kurt Malberg, he's a really decent human. He shows a picture of a fully formed baby, brand new, on the hospital table. Australia's welfare system is paying up to $22,754 to women who abort their babies after 20 weeks. Your money, my money, going to women who choose to have an abortion. This has now been confirmed in writing by a senator in the government. From the desk of the senator who oversees the payments, Senator Link. He's got the receipts. Pauline was going to ask questions about that yesterday, but she had to go home sick very, very early, very, very sick. She's got the flu, severe dose of flu. So while we welcome the fact that David Christofouli's cabinet has done some very welcome work on energy, Metro North specimens, gender transition inquiry, we're extremely disappointed that he has banned debate in Parliament for 4 years on abortion. And yet fully formed babies are being executed. And taxpayers are paying welfare to women who choose to have it done. I think it's we're getting more documents from Dr. Joanna Howe, but she's having a wonderful campaign. Please get behind her, Dr. Joanna Howe. And we need to have a campaign against paying maternity leave and bereavement leave and miscarriage payments to women for an abortion. So Pauline will be asking those questions later. Oh, some more good news. The United States EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, is no longer classifying carbon dioxide as a pollutant. Nowhere in the world has it been classified, or is it being classified as a pollutant. And then, so even the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the UN climate reports, did not. We checked. We asked the UN itself, and the UN said they couldn't find anywhere in the climate reports that say that carbon dioxide is a pollutant. My recollection is that Julia Gillard started calling carbon dioxide pollutant to get people conned into thinking we have to cut human production of carbon dioxide. Obama, when he visited, adopted it and then spread it. It's now getting on. So I won't. I'll get into the properties of carbon dioxide one day. The Greens got a motion up, along with their communist mates in the Labor Party, to have a select committee to be known as the Select Committee on Information Integrity on Climate Change and Energy, to inquire into and report on the prevalence of motivations behind misinformation and disinformation. Basically, they want to shut down debate on climate change. For those of you who haven't seen it, here's a book. You can see it's substantial. That's where climate change first was originated, out of that. Then we had 8 or 9 summaries. You can see property rights given to other life forms. So giving other forms of life, not just humans, property rights. In other words, they want to steal your land. And then you go to Sustainable Development Goals, and there's 17. They want to control every aspect of your life. So the point of raising it is to, first of all, say, go onto the Senate website and check the details, the terms of reference of making a submission, and please make a submission to talk about what you think as the misinformation and disinformation in the climate change area. I know what we'll be talking about. But there's also an outstanding documentary that's come out in this year, 2025. It's called The Agenda. Specifically, it's called The Agenda, Their Vision, Your Future. It talks about Maurice Strong. It talks about the whole formation of the climate change narrative, the climate change scam. It talks about Agenda 21. It talks about the Sustainable Development Goals. I've listened to it while I've been driving in the car, just listened to it, and everything in it is correct. And I've been researching this since 2007. Everything in it is correct and substantiated. So let's just take a couple of questions before we sign off, because we've been going for an hour. And although, hang on, we had an interruption, so we might be able to get a few more questions. Just remember, tomorrow... Oh, here comes a question. Rebecca Jane Leader, what if the Australian people open a bank for Australians? Can we do that? They're very tightly controlled, Rebecca. In theory, you can do that, but they make it very, very difficult. Make it very difficult for you. There was a bank opened up in Britain, wonderful community bank, exactly what you said. Very, very successful. Remember, the banks control. Where is the event happening on the Gold Coast? The banks control government. It's at the CSI Club Southport. Capital C, capital S, little I, South Club Southport. 154A Scarborough Street, Southport, Queensland. It's on my X account, on my Facebook and Instagram. 12:30 it starts, 4:30 it officially finishes. What should Michael Ellison says, why should a business person that did not go to university choose to operate his own business from a young age, having to pay extra tax for this? Exactly. You should not. And that's why Pauline and I and Warwick, Stacey from New South Wales and Tyron Witten from Western Australia voted in unity against this 20% cut in HECS debt, because it just goes straight onto the taxpayer. So you should not have to pay for it. No taxpayer should have to pay for it. And what's more, it's worse because it just perpetuates the lack of accountability in universities. And the students end up paying for it in many, many ways, in shoddy education, unable to get jobs, unaccountable universities. Yeah, John Lang, you smashed it. Using children's safety as the Trojan horse. Well, the real agenda is digital identity. Bloody disgraceful. And there's a video going on through social media. It's a very short 30-second video. It's a clip of the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres talking about and holding up a brochure to put in place these restrictions around the world. And this is happening right now, by the way, in Britain, and they're using it to shut down debate, shut down protests in the United Kingdom. They're jailing journalists for using social media against this childhood, so-called childhood safety. They're using it to shut down debate, and they're using it to bring in digital identity, to force people. Because if you want to watch something on YouTube, then you have to prove you're above 16. And the best way to do that is, or one of the best ways to do that is facial recognition, biometric data. So you might get your child to sit in front of the screen, for example, to be under 16, and then you can only watch kid-proof, kid-safe material. But the moment you sit down behind him, bang, it stops him getting to the internet and stops you getting to the internet unless you've got a digital ID. That's what they're doing. It's just to control us all. Okay, thank you for the questions. Remember, tomorrow, first branch meeting in the new generation of Democratic branch meetings in Queensland, and that's in the Lilly branch. And Sunday, speaking on the Gold Coast for Australians for Better Government. Doors open 12:30, conference ends 4:30. I think there are less than 20 seats left. So doesn't look like there'll be any for sale at the door. Okay, thank you very much. Have a great weekend.